Sabine. My name's Sabine.
Welcome back everyone to another Star Wars Character Explained video. I'm Keegs, and today we're going to be talking about the character Sabine Wren. Now, Sabine is a Mandalorian who was born to Clan Wren of House Vizsla, who some of you might recognize that clan from the Clone Wars, where we were introduced to Sabine's mother actually, Ezra Wren. Ezra joined Death Watch, often serving as bo-katan's right hand, and later joined the Night Owls when Maul had taken over leadership of Mandalore. After the Siege of Mandalore, the Galactic Empire would seize control of the people of Mandalore, who were kept in line by Viceroy Gar Saxon. He was put in power mostly just to keep the Mandalorians from rebelling because he was a Mandalorian, so some of them kind of followed him. He already had a little bit of a following. He was brutal, and he just was one step in between the Empire and the people of Mandalore, which made them feel a little more comfortable, I guess, being controlled like sheep. But eventually, Ursa would leave the service of the Night Owls and meet a man named Alrich and have two children, Sabine and Tristan Wren, who they raised in an Imperial-controlled Mandalore, and Sabine would eventually even join the Empire as an Imperial Cadet. Sabine was basically a genius and an outstanding mechanic who used her knowledge of Mandalorian armor to create a weapon that could turn the armor against its bearer, immediately incinerating them. You see, Sabine was not only naive here, but blinded by the incredible feats of technology she was able to invent. But it was only after she saw what this technology could do when she became absolutely mortified. With the help of a fellow Mandalorian named Ketsu Onyo, Sabine fled the Empire and went AWOL, which caused the Empire to become suspicious of Clan Wren and led to many problems for her family that was still on Mandalore. Sabine's father, Urza's husband, was actually taken hostage by Viceroy Gar Saxon to keep the rest of the Clan Wren in check, which also caused her family to become really angry with Sabine for running and going AWOL on the military. Sabine and Ketsu teamed up and became bounty hunters for a while, but ended leaving on bad terms with each other when Ketsu got greedy on a mission and actually left Sabine for dead. Hera Syndulla used Sabine's dislike of the Empire to recruit her into joining her rebel crew based on the planet Lothal, known as the Spectres, giving her the codename Spectre 5. Spectre 1 was former Jedi Padawan Kanan Jarrus, Spectre 2 was Hera Syndulla, Spectre 3 was Chopper and Astromech, and Spectre 4 was Garzeb Aurelios, better known as Zeb. They would live aboard a VCX-100 ship named the Ghost, where Sabine would constantly use art to express her feelings and opinions. On one mission, the team encountered a local pickpocket named Ezra Bridger, who, after stealing from the Spectre crew, ends up not only joining the rebel crew, but also becomes the Padawan of Kanan Jarrus, who at the time was actually still a Padawan himself. On another mission, Sabine went undercover at the Imperial Skystrike Academy, where she encountered Wedge Antilles, who was becoming disillusioned with the Empire. She ends up helping him, and his friend escape the Empire, where Wedge would actually go on to fight in the Battle of Yavin with Luke Skywalker in Red Squadron, and then later again in many more battles all the way through the New Republic. She would go on to meet Fenn Rau, one of the Protectors, essentially a Mandalorian royal guard, and try to win him over to the rebellion. Though when the communications were lost with the other Protectors, Commander Sato of the rebellion assumed it was a trap set by the Protectors because the first time they met, the Protectors were essentially hostile towards the rebellion and had sided with the Empire. Fenn Rau wanted to clear the names of the Protectors, so they traveled to Concord 3, base of the Protectors, but when they arrived, all of the Protectors had actually been murdered by agents of the Empire, those agents being that of Viceroy Gar Saxon. Rau initially blamed the rebellion and left Sabine and Ezra stranded on the planet to fight off the Viceroy himself, Gar Saxon, but after going away for a few minutes, he then realized that he actually hated the Empire for what they had done and kind of stopped blaming the rebellion so much, had a change of heart, and ended up coming back for the two and deciding to join the rebellion. Sabine then went on a mission to Dathomir, where she acquired the Dark Saber, and upon returning to the Ghost, Fenn Rau encouraged her to wield the Dark Saber and learn how to use it. She really wanted no part of that since there is an extreme burden to wield the Darksaber, which includes leading all Mandalorians. But eventually she was convinced and Kanan and Ezra began to train her in lightsaber combat. The training was very difficult and Sabine and Kanan did not get along at all at first, but eventually they did gain an understanding with each other and Sabine was able to use the fundamentals of Jedi training in conjunction with her Mandalorian fighting style to develop her own technique. This really makes the most sense anyway, because she's not a Jedi, she can't wield the Force, so having her blend the two techniques together just really puts an awesome spin on lightsaber combat, since we hardly ever see a non-Force user using a lightsaber. Sabine, Ezra, and Fenn traveled to Mandalore to try recruiting her family, Clan Wren, to the rebellion. But as Sabine suspected, her family was hostile to the intruders and shot down the ship upon their arrival. Though a ceasefire was called once Sabine finally revealed herself and stepped out of the ship. Sabine and Ezra entered the stronghold to discuss why they were there. Ultimately, this led up to an argument between Ezra and her daughter Sabine, where Sabine was angry that they allied themselves with the Empire, and Ezra believed that the Darksaber didn't actually belong to Sabine since it wasn't won in combat. Sabine went off to spar with her brother Tristan, but he ended up telling her that Ezra had a plan to trade the Darksaber and Ezra to Gar Saxon just to spare Sabine's life. Sabine rushed off to try to protest this, but Gar Saxon had already betrayed Ezra and immediately ordered the execution of all Clan Wren, saying they were colluding with traitors. Fenn Rau, who had been hiding in the ship up until this point, showed up, giving Sabine and Ezra their weapons back, and a fight began to ensue. Eventually, a 1v1 battle ensued with Sabine fighting Gar Saxon, where Sabine ultimately prevailed. She decided that she wanted to spare Gar though, and she made kind of a dumb move and turned away from him, where then he tried to kill her from behind, but luckily Ezra, her mother, intervened and shot Gar dead before he could actually ever get to her. Sabine had rightfully earned the Darksaber now and was fit to rule Mandalore, though she continued to denounce that responsibility, but she said she would search for a person who she believed worthy to rule in her stead. She ended up staying back to help Clan Wren in their civil war and would eventually try to rescue her father from the Imperial prison that he was being held. While on the rescue mission, Sabine's forces were saved by bo-katan, actually, of House Kryze. This was the former leader of Death Watch, and also the sister to the late Duchess Satine, who once ruled Mandalore. They managed to rescue her father, and they went to calm Ezra and Tristan, who were currently fighting Imperial troops, when immediately they lost comms. Sabine recognized the sound just before they lost communications and rushed to her family, where she found many vaporized Mandalorians. Ezra and Tristan were actually able to find cover due to the warning that Sabine had provided, but the other Mandalorians were not so lucky. Sabine revealed that it was the weapon that she actually created while she was an Imperial Cadet, which caused bo-katan to absolutely go off on Sabine.
You're a Mandalorian! Why would you create such an abomination?
It's kind of funny to me how mad the Mandalorians were at her when she deserted the Empire, but also they're extremely angry about the work she did while she worked for the Empire. So it's like, come on, man, make up your damn mind. You want me to work for the Empire or you want me to work against the Empire? I can't tell. You just keep flipping your sides back and forth. But anyways, Sabine and bo-katan went off and were able to destroy not only the weapon, but the plans to that weapon as well, so it could never be used again. Afterwards, Sabine convinced bo-katan that her actions to destroy that weapon have saved countless Mandalorians, and that she did in fact now deserve to rule Mandalore. All of the Mandalorian houses claimed that they would follow her, including Clan Wren and Fenn Rau of the Protectors.
Clan Vizsla is with you.
Clan Rook is with you.
Clan Elder is with you.
Clan Kryze is with you.
The Protectors are with you.
Clan Wren is with you.
Sabine handed over the Darksaber to bo-katan, and she was made ruler of Mandalore once again. Sabine would go back to fighting with the rebels and her crew aboard the ship, and would go to Yavin 4 to meet the other members of the Rebel Alliance, such as Saw Gerrera. Eventually, the Spectres were made aware of the TIE Defender program that had begun on Lothal, operated by Grand Admiral Thrawn. The Spectre crew went to investigate and attempted several missions, some a success, some not so much. In particular, Thrawn had captured Hera, and in the Spectre's attempt to rescue her, Kanan was killed by an explosion, though he was able to save the rest of the Spectre crew. They were also able to shut down the TIE fighter factory, throwing a big blow to Thrawn and the Empire. On one of Sabine's final missions with the rebels, they went to destroy the Dome, which was the central power base for the Empire on Lothal. They were able to take control of it while at the same time Ezra boarded Thrawn's Imperial cruiser, sacrificing himself, likely helping to save the entire galaxy by removing Thrawn from the Empire's board. Ezra had left a message saying his farewells to the rest of the Spectre crew, and to Sabine he just said,
Sabine, don't forget.
Right.
I'm counting on you.
But for what?
The Galactic War had wrapped up, and Sabine talked about how the people of Lothal prepared and laid in wait for the Empire to return, but that day never came. The Empire fell, but it was only after this time that Sabine realized what Ezra actually meant. He was counting on her to find him. Because even though Ezra blasted into hyperspace, he wasn't actually dead, nor was Thrawn. But he did need to be rescued, which is when Sabine ends up teaming up with Ahsoka the White, I like to say, and they set out to search for Ezra. We know from The Mandalorian Season 2 that they haven't found Thrawn yet, since Ahsoka interrogates one of his old Imperial fleet officers, and we can assume that they're still looking for Thrawn because they're trying to find Ezra through Thrawn. Sabine has already been cast in the Ahsoka series, which will probably consist of Sabine and Ahsoka searching for the lost Jedi Ezra to bring him home. But other than that, that is pretty much everything we know about Sabine Wren up through the events of Mandalorian Season 2. She's a pretty cool character, and I hope you're more interested in her now, because now that bo-katan has lost the darksaber for a second time, I could easily see a situation in which they push Sabine to take the leadership mantle of Mandalore, because I'm not even sure bo-katan is going to want to rule Mandalore for a third time, since she feels like she kind of dropped the ball twice already, and it seems like they're kind of setting Sabine up for that role. But let me know if there's anything else about Sabine you think I left out and should have been touched on. I'm Keegs, and I will catch you all next time for some more Star Wars content.